Now we start to study autonomic nervous system. I already told you in time of my lecture reflex arc. Two diagrams, what you need to draw next time, that is sympathetic and parasympathetic reflex arc. That is spinal cord. First of all, somatic reflex arc. This is posterior root with ganglion, anterior root of the spinal nerve, and here it is receptors in tissues. First sensory neuron, that is what? Yes, pseudounipolar in spinal ganglion, internuncial in posterior horn, and motor neuron in anterior horn, that is third neuron, and that is motor fibers goes to striated muscles. That is striated muscle. And now autonomic reflex arc, that is spinal posterior root with spinal ganglion, anterior root, trunk of the spinal nerve, and spinal nerve gives ramus dorsalis, ramus ventralis, ramus communicans albus, and ramus communicans gracilis. And if we speak about sensory, first sensory neuron, it is the same like in somatic. And yes, and second neuron, it is in nucleus, help me, intermedio lateralis. That is second neuron, nucleus intermedio lateralis, in segments from C8 to L3, sometimes 2, L3. And from here start preganglionic fibers. These fibers passes through anterior root, trunk of the spinal nerve, then rami communicans albi, and goes to ganglion. And here it is third neuron, motor neuron in ganglion. This ganglion is ganglion of the first order, or another name, paravertebral ganglion, or it is ganglion of sympathetic trunk. From this ganglion, postganglionic fibers, one way for postganglionic, goes to somatic nerve and continues with this nerve. Why? And what is it supplies? It supplies smooth muscles where somatic nerve supplies smooth muscles where. Oh, what is this nerve? Rami dorsalis, rami ventralis. Rami ventralis, most of them makes plexus, cervical, brachial, lumbar, sacral, yes? And where we have smooth muscles, for example, in extremity, where? In vessels, yes, we have. Smooth muscles we have in skin. We have smooth glands, sweet glands, for example, in skin. That is sympathetic nervous system. It supplies vessels and glands in skin. That is somatic part of sympathetic nervous system. And another postganglionic fibers goes to inner organs and supplies inner organs. That is stomach, for example. And in organs of abdominal cavity and organs of true pelvis, sympathetic nervous system has some fibers which not interrupt in ganglion of the first order. They passes through this ganglion and goes to ganglion of the second order. It is ganglion prevertebralis or ganglion intermedius. And in this case, third neuron is in this ganglion. And from here, postganglionic fibers goes to inner organ. Clear? And receptors, here it is receptor in the stomach, and sensory fibers with these nerves goes to sympathetic trunk, then goes to spinal nerve through rami communicans albi, and goes to posterior root where we have pseudounipolar neuron. That is why white communicans branch, it has preganglionic sympathetic and sensory fibers, which goes back to the spinal nerve. Clear? Now, that is sympathetic. And what is the differences between somatic and sympathetic? In somatic nervous system, third neuron in anterior horn, and third neuron in autonomic ganglions. In sympathetic, they are ganglions of the first or ganglions of the second order. First order paravertebral, second order prevertebral. First order ganglions of sympathetic trunk, second order ganglia intermedia in autonomic plexus. In synapses of this ganglion, mediator. Do you know what is a mediator? That is, it's participate in conduction of impulses. Here and here, acetylcholine everywhere, but in synapses between motor neuron and inner organ, here in these synapses, sympathetic nervous system has mediator, adrenaline, or epinephrine and norepinephrine. Now parasympathetic reflex arc. Parasympathetic. Where in spinal cord we have parasympathetic nucleus.
And like from cervical.
Spinal cord
S1 and S4
S2 to S4.
to S4.
And what is the name?
Nucleus
Parasympatheticus
sacralis.
Yes, you're right. If it is S2 to S4, this is sacral nerves, dorsal branch, ventral, and ventral branches of sacral nerves makes what? Sacral
Plexus.
What is the largest nerve in sacral plexus? Nervus ischiaticus. This is nucleus parasympathicus sacralis. Here it is sensory pseudounipolar neuron, and it goes to nucleus parasympathicus sacralis. This is first, here it is second, and axon of this neuron passes through anterior root, spinal nerve, then rami ventralis, goes to sacral plexus, and if you remember which nerves start from sacral plexus and goes to inner organs. Splanchnici pelvini. They are splanchnic pelvic nerves. Then they goes to inner organs. This is urinary bladder, into pelvis. And these preganglionic fibers goes to inner organs and near of inner organ or inside, it's maybe inside of inner organ. It interrupts and postganglionic fibers supplies inner organ. And in parasympathetic nervous system, acetylcholine is everywhere in ganglion, in synapses here, and in synapses between motor fibers of motor neuron and inner organ. Acetylcholine is here and here. In sympathetic nervous system, acetylcholine in ganglions, but in motor neuron here, in organs, it is epinephrine and norepinephrine. And sensory fibers, the same here are present, receptor, sensory fibers with splanchnic nerves, with sacral plexus, with ventral branch, spinal nerve, and first sensory neuron in spinal ganglion. First neuron, second neuron, and motor neuron in ganglion. This ganglion is ganglion of the third order. Here it is first and second order. This is third order. And this ganglion is ganglion terminalia, terminal ganglion, in parasympathetic nervous system. And only these two diagrams necessary to draw, only them. My next diagram is only for your understanding. I already said in my lecture that in ganglions, in each of these ganglions, here and here, we have three types of Dodgel cells. First type, that is this motor neuron or this motor neuron. Yes, you studied in histology. Yes, first type of Dodgel cells, it is motor neuron. This is motor neuron like this and like this, and motor neuron supplies inner organ. That is first type of Dodgel cells. The same here, we have Dodgel cells of the second and third type, yes? And third. Second and third. Second is sensory neuron. It receives impulses from receptors in inner organ, and it sends impulses to Dodgel cells of the third type, and third goes to first. And we receive peripheral reflex arc. From receptors, impulses goes to Dodgel cells of the second, then third, and then first, and first type supplies inner organ. That is why in autonomic nervous system we speak also about peripheral reflex arc, and this, they are central reflex arches, parasympathetic and sympathetic, and necessary to draw only central. Now we continue to speak about sympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic. But before this is magnum, spinal cord, medulla oblongata, pons, here midbrain. In midbrain, we have one parasympathetic nucleus. It is nucleus accessorius. And fibers of this nucleus makes ocular, continues into third cranial nerve, oculomotor. In pons, we have nucleus salivatorius superior, and from this nucleus axons goes to seventh facial nerve. The same in pons, in medulla oblongata, nucleus salivatorius inferior, which continues into ninth nerve, glossopharyngeal. And the same in medulla oblongata, we have nucleus dorsalis nervi vagi, and vagus nerve. Yes, tenth nerve start from this nucleus. And parasympathetic nucleus, we already said, it is in sacral segments, from S2 to S4. And here is sacral nerves, here and here, they are sacral nerves. And these nerves receive parasympathetic fibers, which passes with sacral spinal nerves and continues to sacral plexus, if you remember. Yes, it is sacral plexus, and from plexus, parasympathetic fibers goes to inner organs in true pelvis. Yes, that is nervis plantnice pelvini. Nervis plantnice pelvini. They are parasympathetic nuclei, and this parasympathetic nuclei makes three centers. Mesencephalic center, it has only one nucleus, accessorius. Bulbar center, it has three nuclei, salivatorius superior, inferior, and dorsalis nervi vagi. And third is sacral center, sacral in segments from S2 to S4, nucleus parasympathicus sacralis. Three parasympathetic centers and one sympathetic center. This sympathetic center has nucleus intermedio lateralis, nucleus intermedio lateralis where?
Yeah, here.
From C8, I put here C, oh sorry, C8
To
to
L3.
L3, L3. And this is spinal nerves, for example. First cervical, second, I will not draw all 31 centers, only some of them. They are thoracic nerves, thoracic spinal nerves, then lumbar spinal nerves, and here the same. And sacral. And now, we said that these nerves has preganglionic sympathetic fibers, yes? I will draw here. This is preganglionic fibers in anterior root, then in spinal nerve, then it leaves spinal nerve and goes to what? Ganglion of the first order, ganglion of sympathetic trunk, yes? It is not difficult, I think. It is clear. That is ganglions of sympathetic trunk. And this is sympathetic trunk. And sympathetic trunk consists of 3 cervical ganglions, superior cervical, middle cervical, inferior cervical. Then 11th on 12 or 12th thoracic, then 4, sometimes 5 lumbar ganglions, and 4 sacral, and 1, in your textbook it is coccygeal, but in new classification that is unpaired, impar ganglion, impar, unpaired ganglion. And the same in opposite side. 1, 2, 3 cervical, 11 or 12 thoracic, 4 or 5 lumbar, and usually 4 sacral. And now it is clear how these ganglions, thoracic and lumbar, upper lumbar, how they receive preganglionic fibers. What about these 3 cervical, lower lumbar and sacral, and this unpaired? How they receive preganglionic fibers? They receive them from, for example, these preganglionic fibers which goes to upper thoracic ganglions, some of them interrupts here and continues to inner organ. And some fibers goes to inferior cervical and interrupts here. And other fibers goes to medial cervical. And some fibers goes to superior cervical. And we receive, what we can see, that all ganglions join together with the help of interganglionar fibers, rami interganglionaris. They join together all ganglions of sympathetic trunk, all of them. That is why upper lumbar receives preganglionic fibers from upper lumbar nerves, and some of them goes to lower lumbar ganglions, another goes to sacral ganglions, and some fibers goes to this one unpaired or coccygeal ganglion. All ganglions join together with rami interganglionaris, and in sacral and in lumbar department the same. These ganglions join together with transverse fibers. I will not draw a lot here, but you need to remember that in transverse direction the same